I could write an essay, okay? You read the question.
This is going to be Hardcore Subnautica with Bookbender.
To answer the question. Okay, try to answer the question. Right? What you may want to talk about the book is not the question they want you to talk about. Okay? Alright. So I had a really hard time with this one because the author had a lot of things crammed into the book, and the teacher
I got a seat.
had a lot of things crammed into the question. Okay? They asked, how does the author discuss gender roles? They asked, how does the author talk about intersectionality? Which took me a long time to try to figure out. Okay? Then they ask, how does the author talk about colonialism? Then they talk about fairy tales. Use 3 fairy tales to describe it. Okay, so you could have actually written a paper on any one of those things by itself.
Fires up.
That's normally not how you would have a student write a paper. Normally, you would pick one, maybe 2 things, like gender and intersectionality, because those kind of go together, right? So you could have used that. How does the author use, how does the author talk about gender roles and intersectionality in the story? Give 3 quotes. Okay? Because this was supposed to be done, this was an in-class written essay, like on a test. So you shouldn't have like 6 different things that you have to do. Because I was thinking you could do a whole paper just on 3 fairy tales. They have 1 fairy tale for each paragraph for how the author included
2
that
flares,
fairy tale, right?
2 water.
Then you're going to do like what Izzy said, and 1 topic for
medical
each
kit
one.
maker.
Gender roles 1,
Revocator.
intersectionality 1, and colonialism 1. Where do you see the length of my
Need a repair tool.
Okay, that's the format that I chose. And I tried to use
Wonder if I can swim over to the ship and get one.
Book that also had fairy tales. Okay? Now, whenever you write a paper or you give a speech, you always need an intention getter at the beginning. It could be a quote. It could be a quote from inside the book. It could be a quote from outside the book. It could be a famous statement. It could be a joke. Okay? But something that catches the reader attention right away. Like in Percy Jackson, he didn't use a quote, but he had a really good open one-liner.
He said, right? It was, look, I don't want to be a half-blood. I didn't want to.
Okay? Right away, you're intrigued. Well, why doesn't want to be a half-blood? Okay? I'm explaining first. Because you're going to have to write essays.
Scrap metal.
I know all this.
Well, then you should benefit from my expertise. Jenna, I only got A's on my essays. I only got A's. I never got any lower. And I had to write a lot of them, which is why typing was very helpful to learn. All right. So, I did a lot of research on fairy tales. I listened to them over and over again because my brain doesn't work as well as yours. And when I was a kid, I could watch a story, listen to a story, or read a book one time, and I'd be able to remember everything in the book. I can't do that anymore. I have to listen to it over and over again before it finally sinks in. Okay? You have that joy to look forward to. Alright, so I spent a lot of time while I was doing the floor listening to the fairy tales over and over again. In the end, I decided Beauty and the Beast because she directly quoted that one several times. And I decided that I could use the Mad Hatter one too. Alright, I spent a lot of time on this. It was very difficult, but this is what I went with, okay? Alright, and I think Jenna will appreciate some of my puns. A grim view of gender roles, intersectionality, and colonialism. And I chose the word grim on purpose. Okay. Will you walk into my parlor? Said the spider to the fly. A spider web of mushrooms is what the main character of Mexican Gothic, Noemi Toboada, walks into, like Little Red Riding Hood walks into the dark forest. The author of Mexican Gothic, Moreno Garcia, uses her main character, Noemi Toboada, to express a grim view of gender roles, intersectionality, and colonialism in pre-World War II Mexico by alluding to the dark versions of fairy tales. What is a fairy tale? According to Wikipedia, I know they are not the best source, but they had the clearest definition. A fairy tale is a short story of the folklore genre, with magic, enchantments, and mythical beings. Two brothers called the Grimms went around Germany collecting folk tales and put them into a book often referred to as the Grimm fairy tales. I know this because I used to watch the series Grimm on cable. The Grimms are among the best-known storytellers of European folk tales. Their book was the first collection of folk tales, the Children's and Household Tales, Kinder on Harjenmunch, was published in 1812. Just as I used Little Red Riding Hood walking into the forest to allude to a darkness and danger, so does the author Moreno Garcia use various fairy tales to help explain and set the tone of the book, Mexican Gothic. First, how are gender roles covered by this book? According to Oxford, gender role refers to the set of social, cultural, and behavioral norms that society considers appropriate for individuals based on their perceived or assigned gender. These roles often dictate how individuals should behave, dress, speak, work, or interact in public and private life. This story takes place pre-World War II. Young ladies got married in their late teens to early 20s and began to have children. Many young men and young ladies finished going to school with high school graduation, and that is why prom and graduation were a very big deal. Graduation from high school was the end of childhood. Young ladies were expected to find a good husband and young men a good job. My mother and grandmother have explained this to me throughout my own life, so it was not surprising to discover in the first chapter of the book that Noemi, like any good socialite, was expected to devote her time to the twin pursuits of leisure and husband hunting. Noemi's parents let her enroll at the Feminine University of Mexico, but they had balked when she declared she'd like to continue her studies upon graduation. Going to college is expensive, and it takes 2 to 4 years depending on if you are getting an associate's degree or a bachelor's of science. She wanted to pursue a master's degree in anthropology. That would be at least 2 more years of school. Her father thought this was both a waste of time and unsuitable with those young men roaming the hallways and filling ladies' heads with silly and lewd thoughts. Noemi's mother was equally unimpressed by these modern notions of hers. Girls were supposed to follow a simple life cycle from debutante to wife. To study further would mean to delay this cycle, to remain a chrysalis inside a cocoon. After describing how Noemi's parents felt, the author shares her belief through Noemi's thoughts. But it isn't like you should have to make up your mind about everything at 22. Clearly, the author believes young ladies should have more time to explore what they want to do in life. Second, the author uses intersectionality as an extension of gender roles with some racial prejudice. Intersectionality, according to Merriam-Webster, is the complex cumulative way in which the effects of multiple forms of discrimination, such as racism, sexism, and classism, combine, overlap, or intersect, especially in the experiences of marginalized individuals or groups. Marginalized, according to Merriam-Webster, means to regulate to an unimportant or powerless position within a society or group. It comes from the habit of people writing notes in the margins of books. The idea is that you are pushing someone to the sidelines. Noemi is a young, 22-year-old, wealthy socialite of Mexican and Indian ancestry, a mestizo. As soon as she meets Florence Doyle, she is marginalized. Noemi offered her hand to the woman, Florence, who looked at it as if she were holding up a piece of weak old fish. She is told by Florence, "We expect you to follow the rules. The most important rule is to be quiet. Don't wander away from the house. If you have business there, in town, you must ask me, and I will have Charles drive you." It felt like this was the scene in Beauty and the Beast, when the Beast tells Beauty the rules of the castle. Another example of Noemi being marginalized is being told to be quiet. Don't talk during dinner. Be quiet. And don't disturb Howard Doyle and the silent staff. This was very much like the invisible servants of Beauty and the Beast. Both of them stared at her mutely. The maid didn't speak to Noemi either. Perhaps Virgil or Florence had informed them Noemi was someone of no importance, and that they should not trouble themselves with her. One of the maids was rolling bread upon a flowered table. She did not acknowledge neither Noemi or Francis. The staff at High Place was almost invisible, like in one of Catalina's fairy tales. Beauty and the Beast, that had been it. Had it not? Invisible servants who cooked the meals and laid down silverware. Noemi was expected to follow the rules of the Doyle house, and they really didn't care what she thought or wanted. Thirdly, Moreno Garcia uses the Doyle house, called High Place, as a symbol of both Gothic literature, colonialism, and dark fairy tale castles. According to Merriam-Webster Online Dictionary, colonialism is the domination of a people or area by a foreign state or nation, the practice of extending and maintaining a nation's political and economical control over another people or area. The building of this English Victorian house in Mexico, instead of a hacienda, is a symbol of colonialism. They didn't build a house that would fit the style of the country they were now living in. Instead, they built a house from England and even brought with them English soil to grow English roses. The house seemed to leap out of the mist to greet them. It looked absolutely Victorian. She'd never seen anything like it. The house loomed over them like a great, quiet gargoyle. Imagine impressing your cousin, an old house atop a hill, with mist and moonlight, like an etching out of a Gothic novel. Wuthering Heights and Jane Eyre, those were Catalina's sort of books. Moors and spiderwebs, castles too, and wicked stepmothers who forced princesses to eat poisoned apples. Dark fairies, cursing maidens, and wizards who turned handsome lords into beasts. Noemi preferred to party on a weekend and drive a convertible. It's obvious that the house was once very expensive and fancy, but now it had been run down and is rotting, just like Howard Doyle. After being in the house for a few weeks, Noemi compares the wallpaper on the house giving off toxic fumes to the Mad Hatter workers. To the Mad Hatter. Okay. Workers used mercury to make felt hats in England. The mercury would slowly poison the workers. They would have slurred speech, shaking hands, and some would hallucinate. The workers were called Mad Hatters. Everyone knew this happened, yet nothing was done, and people still bought the hats. The Mad Hatter is a character in the modern-day fairy tale Alice in Wonderland. This fairy tale mocks the British and Victorian values. The silver mines under Hyde Palace were filled with toxic air from the mushrooms. People said hatters were prone to going crazy, but it was the materials they worked with. They inhaled mercury vapors when they made felt hats. The Doyles knew the air was toxic and had the workers mine anyway, just like Victorian England knew the felt hats created Mad Hatters. In conclusion, the author of Mexican Gothic, Moreno Garcia, uses her main character, Noemi Toboada, to express a grim view of gender roles, intersectionality, and colonialism in pre-World War II Mexico by alluding to dark versions of fairy tales. The fairy tale that she used the most was Beauty and the Beast. Now, that last bit was a little bit rushed because I was out of time. That was it. I was falling asleep. I just finished it up with that sentence. Next morning, I had Annabelle turn it in. Okay? If she hadn't been already asleep, I would have had her turn it in, that night. So, I never had a chance to give it a second run through, but I noticed that I was making two arguments. I went in two directions on the colonialism. First, I discovered, because they had the whole bit about the miners and the mining and about not giving them silver and how the town was booming and then it wasn't booming and how they buried them in the pit. They had a whole bunch of stuff on that, right? And then somebody else said that the way the house was rotting was like the rot of colonialism. Okay, so I had that in my mind when I put in that part about the house rotting and stuff. But I didn't have a chance. I guess it was late at night, and I really should have taken that out because I had gone in a different direction. I wanted to put the Mad Hatter stuff in. And so that house rotting stuff kind of like, I didn't piece that together good enough. You know what I'm saying? I should have had another, but it was late. It was 1:30 in the morning. I was tired, and it was due. And that was it. If I had to do it again, I might have just went with the house and the colonialism and tried to find some quotes from there. Okay? But I wanted to use the bit about the Mad Hatter because I wanted to tie in the other fairy tale. Okay? Because I made the mention of the Little Red Riding Hood, that was 1. Beauty and the Beast, that was 2. And so I wanted to put in the Alice to get the credit for the 3rd fairy tale. Okay? But if I was just writing this paper and I didn't have to do fairy tales, I would have just went with the house itself was a representation of colonialism. I would have continued on just that path. Because you didn't even have to bother to talk about the miners or any of that stuff. The house itself was enough, you know what I'm saying, to make the argument. And especially with the case that a house is a standard, a big, creepy old house is like a standard element in Gothic literature. So I was like, this is perfect. This is perfect. I could put the 2 in there. I had the quote about the creepy, about the house, being creepy and stuff like that. And if I didn't have to have the fairy tale, I would have just went with the bit that I started, that the house was rotting. The rotting house was an example of how colonialism rots the country or the place that it's in. I would have went that way. But then I remembered I had to put in the Mad Hatter stuff, so I switched. And so that was a little bit awkward. But at the same time, Annabelle is not a college graduate, and it shouldn't be perfect. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If it was too perfect, maybe it was better that it wasn't perfect. You know what I'm saying? Because me writing it had that mistake, It had that mistake.
Alright.
And I had to try to make it believable, but that's why I have in there the line about how she watched Grimm fairy tales. And I figured if the teacher asked her about it, she could say, yeah, I watched Grimm fairy tales with my father, Remember when we would do that? That was the last thing we used to watch with him before he left. Yeah, we would watch like an episode every time he came over.
It was good until it got weird.
We just were uncomfortable with relationship parts. The bad guy liked the wife of the
It was
Grimm.
because of the weird love potion spell he used to save her life.
Yeah, I remember there was something weird about that.
Because it wasn't love, it was obsession, specifically.
Well, I don't remember the details. I just remember that that's where we had left off. That he loved the Grimm's wife, and that was like the weird the weird triangle thing, because
it's not
the
a
Grimm
love triangle.
is the
like,
enemy.
I hate that people.
The Grimm is the enemy.
It's a love corner. Yeah, because if it's a love triangle, like it should be triangle formation, but it's not. It's an angle.
Right. Well, she only saw him as her boss.
Not even her boss.
No, he was her.
No,
He was the Grimm's boss, wasn't
he? Was her. Were they married?
They were engaged.
Her fiance's boss.
Yeah.
It was just weird. They shouldn't have put that in. It's just weird.
No, well, it made it like why they wouldn't bump her off, and they didn't bump her off because
no, they already had a reason.
They already
had a reason not to. They already had a reason.
Well,
that he said previously.
What?
That she was the thing that was keeping him in the city. Otherwise, he'd just move away. But she wanted to live there because her family was there or something, and so he wouldn't leave his jurisdiction as long as she was alive. Which is why he saved her in the first place. But the result of saving her left him affected by the spell, and so he became upset.
Alright, well anyway, so... Alright, so now you gotta figure out how to save this.
What do you mean?
How so? I want to know where this is saved to on the computer. It saves itself. But I want it not to be out on the internet. I want it to be saved on the computer or on this drive. Word document.
Come on.
Alright. What should I call it? Annabelle Mexican Gothic.
Annabelle Mexico. Shorty.
Alright. Now for me next. Do I have a fever? Am I hot?
Warm.
Do I feel like I have a fever?
It's warm.
I am warm.
Yeah. You wear it. And your hands are normal temperature.
There could be a possibility that I have a fever.
Where'd you put the
Temperature gauge monitor?
Oh, you have the pills right there.
Need a pill?
No, it's alright. Izzy, come on.
Alright.
Izzy!
Alright, so now you got an idea for how I wrote my paper. You have to write one too, Emma.
Yeah, I know.
Except you can
Pick my own topic,
yeah.
I'm gonna get an energy drink from downstairs.
But something similar though to what they have. But maybe shorten it, like, because they asked multiple different things, and we just shorten it, like, 3 fairy tales the author uses to set the
Tone
mood
for
of the story.
Tone, I guess. Mood with, well, author's tone. Reader's mood.
But it's more than that. She also used it as a way to quickly explain something. How the author uses fairy tales as a tool.
And Mexican gods.
Yeah. And then use fairy tales.
Alice in Wonderland, Beauty and the Beast, Cinderella, I think is what I originally thought. Cinderella for the whole becoming a prisoner in her own home. But I guess Sleeping Beauty would also have.
Sleeping Beauty too.
Maybe Sleeping Beauty would be better than Cinderella, since that was directly referenced.
Yeah. She uses it to describe Catalina.
Or Rapunzel.
I wonder if she used the name Catalina because she was catatonic. Fun? I just thought of that. So I was like, why would you use
I
that
could
name?
do how Frances is the true victim of Mexican Gothic.
I found the story that's from. It's called
Frances?
the story of the body swapping, because they kind of glossed that over. But that's a whole nother fairy tale too. The body swap. That's a movie called The Skeleton Key, where you swap bodies. The idea was that Howard was going to jump into Frances's body and was going to boot Frances into his body. And so then Frances would die in that decrepit body and Howard would live on with his body. And that's why he was so interested in Noemi. No, I can't. Noemi. Is because he was going to be then her husband.
Again, I think, what's that, Hocus Pocus?
That one just drained the body.
I know, but
He transferred it to them. They drained the little girl.
what's that, that's even more for like the Disney movie of Rapunzel. I don't know if the original had it as well, with the witch using Rapunzel to keep herself alive. I now need
But
to
it
include
didn't
that.
have a negative effect on Rapunzel, though.
She had to stay locked in the tower her whole life. She couldn't leave. Like
Yeah,
you
but
can.
it didn't affect her
Frances never left that town.
It didn't affect her health. Whereas this was a definite body swap. And there is a fairy tale about it. It's
Well,
called
I never
The
read that one, so
Unfortunate-
I don't want to reference it because I didn't grow up hearing that one. So it has no weight with my estimate.
Well, I had heard it before. I had seen movies about it before.
Man, I didn't even get to that part of the story. Wow.
What part?
Where the body swapping.
Oh, you didn't get there yet?
It's fine.
It's
But-
like the last. A lot of things happen in the last chapter. After it
that's-
dragged along,
I think that's
the
how
last chapter is boom, boom, boom.
Oh. I think that's how Gothic stories are. And most of the book is spent explaining what that damn house looks like.
Yeah.
And then everything happens in the last chapter.
Where are you going?
Versus Elderich.
There's something else too. They like to say that Noemi is smart, but
She's not.
she was only average.
A smart person would have insisted like a brother go with her.
No. Well, she had the whole chip on her shoulder that I could do this, I could do this job, right? The smart person would have been, as soon as she got
A smart person?
as soon as she got the report from the doctor, the second opinion, she should have left.
A smart person
That was her
would
job was
have,
done.
as soon as she saw the state of the house, would have put that in her letter and then found somewhere to stay in the town.
Right, she should have told her father the truth. She should have told him the Doyles are creepy as hell. They have little to no respect for me. I'm trying to get a second opinion from another doctor.
And she wouldn't even need to say
You know
how
what I'm
that,
saying?
just the state of the house would have been enough to say, like, this isn't a good marriage deal.
No, she needed to put that all in.
Alright.
And Catalina is acting very odd.
pajamas the whole day?
Calorie intake recommended. Passing 100 meters. Oxygen efficiency decreased. Vital signs stabilizing. Signal location uploaded to PDA.
Go ahead, go ahead. What? Well, the gas bill was $100 less since we used the kitchen, and I guess the furnace hasn't been heating that much. this
Kitchen
last
runs
month.
on electric.
So that means
Kitchen stove is electric.
it cancel. Kitchen stove is electric.
Yes.
Well, it would have been even worse if you were cooking. So that canceled out the $100 extra that it was for the electric bill. Let's see.
Yeah.
Past 100 meters. Oxygen efficiency decreased. Past 100 meters. Oxygen efficiency decreased. Seek fluid intake. Past 100 meters. Oxygen efficiency decreased. Seek fluid intake immediately.
Oh, I got killed by a bush. I got killed by a bush. A bush. Nothing but a bush.